All right, so
So
should
we're
we
supposed to sip our coffee once
do
in
our
a while?
do our yeah. So our typical introduction is I introduce myself as being from aristocob.com, and I throw it to Seth, and he says, and I'm Seth Markwood from, and then he normally makes up a URL, something oftentimes.
So am I supposed to introduce myself?
Yeah, you should. So let's just start. Hey, I'm Scott from aristocob.com. No, I said it wrong. That's funny.
So are you going to say anything else?
I will. Hey, Scott from aristocob.com here.
And I'm Cal Markwood, Scott's dad, and I don't smoke a pipe.
And together, along with you, the three of us were Markwood Men's Breakfast Club. And as you noticed, my dad is not Boy. I'm in Littleton, Colorado this week, here for the funeral of a family friend. And ironically, also, since I've been away from home, got the word of the death of John that I talked about on my own channel. And even prior to that, since I was coming out here for this funeral, I had been thinking about the topic I wanted to speak to my dad about here today, and that is wills and making sure that not only you have your thoughts together on what you want done with your estate when you're gone, but the importance of letting other people know too. So maybe to set the stage for that, can you tell them a little bit about Luana and the fact that who she had and all that?
Yes, Luana has been a lifelong friend of ours. She was an orphan as a very small child, was adopted. We knew her at church and primarily at church over the years. She was close to sisters of mine, Scott's aunts, and was just kind of on the fringe of the family for many years. Later on, she became a very supporter to my parents when my father was dying of cancer. And then after that, she was a housemate of my mom's for about 10 years before my mom remarried. We moved back to Denver in 1981, and since we've been back here, Luana's been part of our family for that whole time. She was essentially adopted herself to our family and became an aunt, adopted aunt, kind of in a reverse situation. She knew every child, every grandchild, their birthdays,
Way too much
their
about
ages.
us.
Yeah, you had to be a little bit careful what you told her because it went to the whole family soon after that. She was a great communicator, and everybody in the family loved her.
Yeah. Also very active in missions, traveled all over the world and supported missionaries, and of course knew everything about them and their families.
Yes, she worked for a flooring company and retired from that. Went to work as a staff person for the Denver Seminary and was involved with, again, missionary support in that. When she left that, as unpaid retirement jobs, she went to work for another missionary group called World Venture and wrote memorials for missionaries who died. She communicated with them. She visited them in places like Africa and Haiti and the like. Just totally committed to God's work.
So she passed away suddenly. Actually, she was at work.
Yes, she was at work. Morning getting the office started. They had prayer time together, and then she complained about being a little bit dizzy. They laid her down and called the emergency people. By the time they got her out of the building, she had died. No prior warning that she or any of the rest of us had. If she had a warning, she didn't talk about it.
And not to out her for her age, but what age was she?
She was generally 77. Okay.
Okay.
Not a young lady, but not really old like some of us.
Yeah. As I thought about, okay, who in my family do I need to be prepared to attend funerals for? She was so far down that list, a healthy 77 and very active, and it was a real surprise. So what prompts this whole conversation, this thought was, Okay, she has a condo that she owns, she has a car, and assuming that there's other belongings and maybe savings and things. So what was her desire for those things? Where should they go?
Well, an issue underlying all of this was the fact that we had no knowledge of any relatives that she had. Around Christmas time, when she was with us, my wife, Peggy, Scott's mother, asked her or commented to her that we needed to talk about end of life things with her, and her answer was yes, and then she walked away. So after she died, with no knowledge of any relatives, we stepped in, consulted with a lawyer, and found out what our right to access were, which is very, very limited under Colorado law, but we had keys to her apartment, to her car, and were able to go in and start looking for her will.
And empty the refrigerator.
And, well, yeah, of course, take the green stuff out of the refrigerator and potential future green stuff. Scott came, two sisters came from two sides of the country. About 5 of us went through records in Luana's apartment and could not find a will. We could find her adopted mother and father's wills and all of their estate settlement work that Luana had actually taken care of when they passed away, but absolutely nothing that indicated what Luana wanted done with her belongings.
So this is where things, it gets really uncomfortable. None of us like to think of our mortality, and none of us want to think about, losing our friends and loved ones, but it happens, right? Death is guaranteed, one per person, right? And this is a perfect example to me of, I know that she would want the ministry she supported to be supported. We have since discovered there's a family member, right? She certainly would want that family member to be somehow remembered in her will, and yet, at least as of right now, we don't know what her wishes are. So one of the things that I wanted to do while I was out here, my mom and dad went over with all of your children a couple years ago, what your will was and what your wishes were in that will, and it's an uncomfortable conversation to hear. I'm sure it's an uncomfortable topic to bring up. Since that time, my mother-in-law passed away, and she had everything laid out, and it was such a wonderful gift to us, coming from North Carolina to Ohio, very limited time, to not have to go and unravel and dig through things to find out, well, what did she want done with her effects and so on. It was just very, very clearly laid out, and we've commented over and over again, that by far was the best gift that she left us. It had nothing to do with cars and houses and money. It was the fact that it was clear what she wanted done with her belongings. We've also talked about what you want done with your body and what kind of services you want. Is there anything that you would share? I mean, for somebody who maybe hasn't thought about any of this, what kind of process do you think about here?
There's 2 ways you can go. You need a will that directs your survivors to deal with your estate. You can go the simple way, and that's to go online and download a will document, and they're free online, and you can fill it out and sign it. You don't have to register it. You just need to have it, have your signature on it. Doesn't hurt to have it notarized. And then key thing is make sure somebody knows where it is, okay? And that's what's missing in Luana's. We think she probably had a will because she was a very organized person, but we don't know that for a fact. The other choice is what we did, and we went to an attorney that does estate planning. And this is not just wills, but he developed a living trust that we were able to put our house and other property into, and that gets it out of the hands of the state. There's no government involvement, no way that they have to get to your money. In Luana's case, had we not discovered her nephew just yesterday, her money would have gone to the state of Colorado to an educational fund. And Colorado's not tops on the education business, so I'm not sure any of that would have been used well. So, two ways: go cheap with an online quick will, or go full way for a full estate plan, so that you can again bypass the government process. If you have a will, it has to be processed by the government, and it can take up to 1.5 years to get that accomplished. And there's taxing and so forth that goes on during that time. So,
another interesting topic that maybe we can talk about that I don't know that many people do talk about. As Christians, it's been the tradition that when Christians die, we are buried, and it points to our belief in a resurrection, right?
Yeah.
And yet, I know that you and Mom have chosen that you want to be cremated, and this is something that we talked about years ago, and I was curious how you came to a level of comfort with that idea. And I actually, we have some pastors and some preachers and a number of priests here in the YouTube pipe community that would probably enjoy hearing your thoughts on that. So would you mind sharing?
No, I don't mind.
And by the way, it's so weird to look at you without you having glasses on. He just had cataract surgery and now doesn't need glasses except for when he's reading. And I have looked at this man for 56 years, always with glasses on.
It's nice.
Can we pop some lenses out of some frames just so I can feel?
Yeah, I put my reading glasses on. What was the question?
The question was about, okay, you're a Christian and you guys have chosen cremation.
Yeah, my mother and I discussed this when I was probably 8 or 10 years old. World War II was going on at that time, and I heard her comment that cremation was a way of people who didn't believe in God to make sure he couldn't bring their bodies back in the resurrection process. And if you're not a churchgoer, you may not know about that. Get your Bible and read it, okay? Or start going to a good church. I was observing that during the war, men were being killed by the tens of thousands in ships being blown up and airplanes being shot down and troops being killed on the ground. And I know a lot of their bodies couldn't possibly have been buried. The Navy, when someone was killed on a ship, buried them at sea. And you know what happens when you're buried at sea. So I said, how can you say that cremation is a rejection of God? I felt like God had a way to figure out how to put a body back together if he wanted it back together, or is it just a spirit thing? And that's my belief now. The resurrection is a spirit resurrection. The literal understanding of what the Bible says about the dead coming out of the graves is something that I'll just have to find out about later on. But my mother said that I made a good point with the fact that so many people were being killed and bodies totally destroyed during the war, that must not be the final answer. So we're very comfortable with the idea of cremation. We are set up to do that. Luana's body is scheduled to be cremated any day now. Got some legalities going on again because she didn't have a will that expressed her wishes specifically. And so that's another part of the will process that needs to be handled.
And you introduced us then to an organization that is handling cremations. And I remember, again, part of this conversation too was what you've seen happen in a number of industries that serve weddings and take care of funerals. And so what was your opinion on that?
Well, my opinion is that it's a real parasite industry. And if you check prices for a funeral, you'll find you're talking in the $10,000, $12,000, $14,000. If you go for a casket that's really ornate, you can get up in $20,000, $25,000. Cremation is much, much, much less expensive than that. And I would just as soon not pay for parasites. So, and I think the wedding industry is very much the same.
Very much the same.
Yeah.
So the organization is the Neptune Society?
Yeah, the Neptune Society is who we're signed up with. They're able to recover a body from around the world and may cremated in place in another country or may ship the body back, they can make provisions for the body to be retained for a week or 10 days in order for family to gather if they want a viewing. So it seemed like a well thought out, people friendly.
Yeah, you can buy urns from them, which again dramatically less expensive than what a traditional
Coffin.
Yeah, but no. But what's the word I'm looking for? The funeral homes, right? That typically will sell you.
Mortuary.
And they're talking to you at the time where your emotions are, your brain's a wreck and your emotions are high. And of course you want the beautiful dovetailed walnut urn for your grandma, don't you? But you can buy urns on Amazon with
Right.
Prime.
Yeah, that's another element. You go to cremation and you've cut the cost down a whole lot, but we found at the Neptune Society office here that they had urns that you could purchase from them. One particularly attractive urn was $399. We didn't buy it. I came home and went on Amazon and found it for $82. Same urn. So, and not to be talking cheap at the loss of a loved one time, but
Well, they're talking
money's
profit
money.
at the loss of a loved one time. So, all right. Well, what do they do if someone is making plans and they say, okay, count me in, cremation sounds fine. Then what? I mean, do the ashes? You see folks sprinkle them. You see people put them on their fireplace mantle. Is it considered at that point a body and regulated like it would be if you had them in the freezer?
I'm not sure I know the whole answer. I do know that the mortuaries at their burial sites, by state law, have to put the cremated remains into a vault that then gets put in the ground.
Okay,
It seems ridiculous to me.
it does.
Others take the ashes and sprinkle them wherever, whatever appeals to them to honor the person. I looked up Colorado's laws, and there are certain areas that you can go and sprinkle them free without any charge. Others you have to have a permit. Others are forbidden. So
Right.
get on your computer and look them up is the answer to that.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Dad.
Some people put them in on the shelf,
Yeah.
on the mantle. Some people you can buy little urns, heart-shaped urns, and so forth, and every person in the family that wants one can get it and put it in their bedroom. You can buy jewelry that you can put some of the ashes in and wear it. Most of that creeps me out. Okay, I don't want anybody keeping my ashes any place but putting them in the military cemetery where they belong.
There goes my plan for my new cufflinks.
What shirts do you have that need cufflinks?
None, actually, but I'd start wearing them. I would.
Don't count on it.
I could have chosen much worse pieces of jewelry than cufflinks to mention at that moment. All right, Dad. Thanks for this conversation. And we're not attorneys, we're not morticians. We're just people that are dealing with the same issues that someday you and your family will deal with. And so I think it makes sense for us to just go ahead and have these conversations and get thinking about them, because do you want to say in these things that happen with you or your family, your loved ones? I think that you should. So thanks again, Dad.
You're welcome.
Thanks for putting me up for a couple of days, putting up with me and putting me up. All right, hey, make it a great week. We'll be off our hiatus soon, I'm pretty sure, so we'll see you again soon.
Bye.
Seth and I have been on a hiatus since Christmas time. We do our countdown to Christmas where we do videos every single day, and we just
You get burned out.
feel like we've said everything that you can possibly say.